Okay, so today we're going deep on Kanye West.
All right, sounds good.
And specifically, we're looking at this interview he did with Akademiks.
Yeah, this one was pretty wild.
It really was, like, even just getting started, you know, the outfit choices were a lot. Like, he starts off with the swastika chain.
Oh, yeah, that was...
with a Sean John shirt.
Yeah, I mean, it was... I don't even know what to make of that combination.
Right. And then later on, he's in the black KKK outfit. I mean, those are some pretty loaded images right off the bat.
Yeah.
What do you think he's trying to do with that?
Well, I think it has to be deliberate, you know? Like, to combine those particular things, especially right at the start. He has to know it's going to create controversy and get people talking.
It definitely did that, yeah. And then the content of the interview itself got pretty intense, too.
Yeah.
Right away, he comes out and says he supports Diddy and R. Kelly. I mean, those are some really serious accusations against those guys.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so interesting to me is that he specifically chooses to defend them in light of those accusations. You have to wonder if he's just being contrarian or if there's some deeper loyalty there or maybe he's just looking at those situations through a totally different lens than most people.
It is hard to say, but it definitely goes against the mainstream narrative.
It does, yeah.
And then he kind of pivots and talks about Drake and, you know, offers his support in the middle of all this stuff with Kendrick Lamar and those legal battles with Universal.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too, because, you know, Drake and Kanye haven't always been on the best terms.
Not at all.
But you see that kind of thing a lot in the music industry, right?
Yeah.
Like alliances and perspectives, they can shift really fast depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of shifting relationships, he had a lot to say about JYZ in this interview. Like, he went pretty deep on how he felt JYZ and Beyonce didn't have his back when he was going through some tough stuff with his kids.
Yeah, that was heavy. I mean, it's like you can be super famous and you can have all this influence, but that doesn't mean you have that support system in your personal life. And it sounded like he was really hurt by that.
He was, yeah. He even said JYZ didn't come to his first wedding.
Yeah.
And that he doesn't consider him family anymore.
That's a huge statement, yeah. Like, that relationship was so important for so long, both personally and professionally, and to hear him talk about it like that, it's like he's really cut ties.
Completely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about personal stuff either. He brought up money, too, and how much JYZ makes from his catalog compared to him. So it's like there's this sense of financial tension between them as well.
Yeah, that definitely adds another dimension. And it brings up those bigger questions about how artists get compensated and who actually owns their work in the long run.
For sure. But then even after saying all of that, he also said that it hurt him, that he had to hurt Jay. I mean, that sounds like there's still some emotion, that there's some connection that he's struggling with.
It does, yeah. It's like, even though he feels like he had to distance himself, he's still feeling the loss of that relationship.
Makes sense. So moving on, he also talked about Kendrick Lamar. And he actually referenced an old tweet from JJYZ and kind of used it as a warning to Kendrick. What was that about?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but I think he was maybe trying to point out some pattern of behavior from JJYZ. Like, maybe he was suggesting that Kendrick should watch his back and be careful about getting caught up in similar situations.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then he also accused Kendrick of straight up copying his album The Life of Pablo with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. He even specifically said that the drums and the overall approach were similar.
Yeah, that was a bold move. I mean, accusations of copying happen all the time in music, but to be that direct about it is pretty rare.
Yeah, he wasn't holding back at all. And he didn't stop there. He went on to question why the NFL would pick Kendrick over Drake for the Super Bowl halftime show. He even implied that Kendrick doesn't have enough hits.
Yeah, you could tell he was trying to make a point about who's really on top right now, commercially speaking. Like, to him, the Super Bowl is all about mainstream success and hits.
Exactly. So then he shifted gears again and started talking about Frank Ocean. And he said flat out that his music is better than Frank's.
Yeah, you gotta give him credit for confidence, right? I mean, Frank Ocean is a legend. To say you're better than him is a pretty huge statement.
It is. And he didn't stop there. He even said that his song Moon basically ended Frank Ocean's career because Frank hasn't released much since then. I mean, that seems like a stretch.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he's overstating his influence there. I mean, Frank Ocean has his own reasons for not releasing music.
True. And it's funny, he even picked on this one lyric from Frank's song where he says, sipping some wine. Like, it was somehow proof that Frank wasn't a good artist anymore.
Right. It was such a random detail to focus on, but it kind of shows you how far he was willing to go to prove his point.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on from music, he also got really personal about Kim Kardashian and their kids. He said that at first he didn't really want to have kids with her beyond the first few months, but that he felt like it was God's plan. I mean, that's a pretty private thing to share.
Yeah, it was. And it kind of shows you how complicated the relationship was from the very beginning. Like, he was wrestling with his own feelings, but also this idea of what he was supposed to do.
Yeah. And then he talked about how he realized he doesn't own his children's name and likeness after his daughter was on a song with Diddy. And that got him thinking about how this white woman and this white family have control over his highly influential black kids. So it's like he's bringing race and ownership into the conversation.
Yeah, that was a really powerful point. You can tell he's concerned about the influence his kids are exposed to and how their identity is being shaped.
Absolutely. And he even brought up advice his dad gave him about not criticizing Kim for the sake of the kids. But he said he's not doing that anymore. Now it's like he's in war mode. So it sounds like his approach to co-parenting has really shifted.
Yeah, it's like he feels like he has to fight for what he believes in, even if it means going against what his dad told him.
And honestly, some of the things he said were really troubling. Like when he accused the Jews of thinking they can manipulate Kim. That's just straight up anti-Semitism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no other way to interpret that. And it's important to call that out and not let that kind of language slide.
Agreed. Okay, so moving on to another big topic. He talked a lot about Diddy. And he was comparing his own experiences with companies like Diageo and Adidas to Diddy's current situation. And basically he was saying that they're both being punished for trying to break away from the system.
Yeah, it was like he was trying to show that there's this pattern in the industry where if you're an artist and you try to assert your independence, you get crushed. And he really feels like he and Diddy have been used and exploited.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
And he specifically brought up that video that resurfaced of Diddy and Cassie. And he acknowledged that people were upset about it, but he also said that getting physical is normal in relationships. I mean, that's a pretty messed up thing to say.
It is. I mean, no matter how you look at it, violence is never okay. And to try to normalize it like that is really dangerous.
Totally. But it's interesting because even with all the controversy around Diddy, he still called him his twin. And he talked about this conversation they had where they were both talking about the challenges they face in the industry. So it's like he still feels this deep connection to Diddy.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of complexity there. It's like they're both going through these really intense experiences and they have this shared understanding of what it's like to be in their position.
Yeah. So let's circle back to Drake for a minute. He didn't just offer his support. He went as far as to say that Drake is 1,000,000 times better than Kendrick and 1,000,000 times more important. Culturally. I mean, those are strong words.
He's basically saying that Drake is the top dog in the game right now. And it's interesting because it kind of feels like he's switched up his opinion on Drake.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, there was a time when they were rivals. But now it seems like he's genuinely impressed by Drake's work. Like, he even specifically praised the stuff Drake has been doing with Future and Young Thug.
Oh, yeah, he did mention that. And then he threw out this wild idea that Drake should be his writer.
Yeah, that was a weird one. Who knows what he really meant by that? Maybe he was just joking, or maybe he actually sees some potential for them to work together in a different way.
Could be. Okay, so switching gears again, he brought up Travis Scott, and he sounded pretty upset. He accused Travis of taking his contributions off the Utopia album without telling him. Apparently, Kanye had like 4 songs on there, including choruses and singing parts, and Travis just replaced him with people like Future and SEA.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, if that's true, it sounds like there's a serious rift between them. And it makes sense that Kanye would be hurt and angry about it.
Yeah, he definitely sounded betrayed. And then there was that whole thing with J. Cole. Kanye called him out for that lyric, False Idols. And then he just said, J. Cole is the false idol.
Yeah, he loves doing that kind of thing, like taking someone's criticism and throwing it right back at them.
It's like his signature move. So then there's Playboy Cardi. And honestly, this is one of the most uncomfortable parts of the whole interview. Kanye was using some really offensive language, and he seemed genuinely furious with Carti.
Yeah, he was. And that kind of language is never okay. It's just hateful and hurtful.
Absolutely. But going beyond the language, it sounds like he was really upset that Cardi would contact Kim after everything they've been through. And the fact that Cardi was rapping about Skims and then asking Kanye for vocals just made it worse.
Yeah, it's like he felt like Cardi was being opportunistic and trying to use the situation for his own benefit, and that's a betrayal on a personal level.
Yeah, and Kanye even said that it hurt him, that someone who could be considered family would do that. Like, he called Cardi his daughter's uncle, and he just couldn't believe that Cardi would reach out to Kim knowing what was going on.
That really shows how much this whole thing has affected him. It's like he's feeling betrayed on all sides.
He is. He even said this whole thing with Cardi was a final heartbreak. And he brought up how Cardi was the first feature on Donda. So it's like their relationship meant something to him.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can tell he had high hopes for their creative partnership. Like, he even talked about this song, We Need All the Vibes, and this mixtape they were supposed to do together.
He did. And he even gave his opinion on Cardi's album and said it had too many features and that it would have been better with his production.
Yeah, he wasn't holding back on the criticism, but it also kind of shows you that he still cares about Cardi's work in a way.
Maybe. And then he used this red pill, blue pill analogy to describe what happened with Cardi.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. I think he was basically saying that Cardi chose to conform to the system instead of staying true to his own vision.
That makes sense. Okay, so then there's Pusha T. And Kanye basically demanded that Pusha be loyal to him, especially when it comes to his kids. He even said that if Pusha doesn't defend him, then he shouldn't be talking about Kanye's political views.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense demand. Like, he was basically saying that their loyalty should be absolute and that it covers all aspects of their lives.
Yeah. And he made it clear how much he expects from Pusha. He even said that he bled for Pusha and that Pusha should just say, "We ain't speaking on Ye," if anyone asks about him.
Yeah, he was laying down the law. And it really shows how important loyalty is to him.
It does. And throughout the interview, he kept referring to himself in these really powerful terms. Like he called himself the lawyer off Carlito's Way and the boss. And he kept calling other people broke and saying they weren't masterminds like him.
Yeah, he loves to position himself as the smartest guy in the room. And I think it's part of how he asserts his dominance.
Totally. And then out of nowhere, he started attacking John Legend. He called him a sissy ass and said he helped make John Legend's career. I mean, it was so random and unprovoked.
Yeah, that was bizarre. It's like he just had all this pent-up anger and he needed to lash out at someone.
Maybe. And the insults were so weird and specific, too. Yeah. Like he talked about John Legend wearing sweaters in Barbados and this rumor that he smells like mashed potatoes.
Yeah, it was just strange. Like, what's the point of even saying those things?
I have no idea. So another person he called out was Ty Dolla. And he accused record executives of pressuring Ty to publicly denounce him. He even said they threatened to drop Ty's artist and cancel his tours if he didn't.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious accusation. It shows you how much power these labels have over artists.
Yeah. And Kanye even described this whole conversation he had with Ty about a tweet. Like, they agreed on this wording, say, "I'm not racist, but Ye is." But then Ty tweeted something different. He said, "I don't condone hate speech." So Kanye felt like Ty went back on his word.
Yeah, he definitely felt betrayed by that. And it feeds into that whole narrative of him feeling like everyone's turning against him.
Exactly. And then, of course, he had to exaggerate and say that he 137x Ty Dolla $ign's career.
Yeah, that was just ridiculous. Like, come on.
So the last person I want to talk about is Jim Jones. Kanye told this story about how Jim wanted a percentage for connecting him with a crypto guy.
Yeah, that's pretty typical in the industry, right? Like, people expect to get paid for making connections.
It is. And Kanye knew Jim was going to get a cut, but he still did the deal. It was the $2 million deal for a crypto coin, and Jim got his money. So what was the problem?
Well, apparently Kanye got really upset because later on he asked Jim for some fashion ideas, and Jim said he didn't know how to make a PDF.
I know, it's so random. Like, out of all the things to get mad about.
It is. But I think it was more about the principle of the thing. Like, Kanye felt like Jim was being disrespectful and unprofessional.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And he even sarcastically said that he didn't ask Jim for a percentage of the crypto deal, even though he was the one who made it happen.
Yeah, he was definitely trying to make a point there. Like, I did you a favor and this is how you repay me.
Exactly. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to mention one more thing. Kanye made this really brief statement about Virgil Abloh. He had tweeted something negative about Virgil after he died, and he basically just said, "I'm evil. I'm an evil person."
Yeah, that was chilling. It's like he's acknowledging that he's capable of doing bad things even when it comes to someone he supposedly cared about.
It was a really dark moment. Okay, so wow, we covered a lot. I mean, this interview is just all over the place.
It really was. We went from music to family to race to business to betrayal. It was a lot to unpack.
It was. So what do you think is the biggest takeaway from all of this? Like, what should our listener be thinking about after this deep dive?
Well, I think it's important to remember that Kanye is a human being just like the rest of us, and he's going through some really tough stuff right now, but that doesn't excuse his behavior. Like, some of the things he said were just unacceptable. So I think it's up to each listener to decide how they feel about Kanye and his words. There's no easy answer. But hopefully this deep dive gave you some more insight into his world and what might be going on in his head.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's complicated. Okay, well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.